2026 around the corner. It's an election year, big election year. You got your midterms for Congress, and then you have the state legislative races as well. Joining me here on the morning ride to talk about the little bit of that election landscape next year, both around the state and how it's going to impact things, or I guess a little bit to the extent of that you have the congressional midterms next year as well, is the King County Republican Party Chair, Jolie Lansdowne. Jolie, thank you for coming back on the show. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me.
I forgot to reach for the phone button. Jolie, it's great to have you back on with us here. We've had you on a couple of times earlier this year since I've taken over for John Carlson, but you wanted to bring attention to that idea of election season next year. For example, the state legislative races, but it would really apply to any sort of local or state races. They're going to start to come up here in the next year or two. And it's that idea of recruiting people who would think about being a candidate and running for office. So why do you want to try and bring attention to this?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Exactly. Well, being a candidate is what is just an important part of engaging in local government. And, to be a candidate, like think of, if you're a parent, if you're a homeowner, if you're a taxpayer or a business owner, you're actually a perfect candidate. And when we're looking across the landscape, from the Senate all the way down through all the available positions, our diversity is our strength, and the experiences and the backgrounds that each of us bring to local government, that's what makes us strong and healthy. And so we've got systems in place, and I look forward to talking to anybody who is considering, well, maybe, I've been a business leader in my community. I might step into the ring and run for a ballot position and see if I can do some good with, moving some conservative policies forward. And, that's what we're here to talk about.
So, Jolie, do you end up having conversations with people who kind of unprompted, they bring up some of their frustrations about what they're seeing between state and local politics? And then does that serve as an entry point for you to say, hey, have you ever thought about running? Do you end up having those conversations?
Exactly. I do. I get to have a lot of those conversations. And I do get to have, that highlighted that, there's opportunities. Our voice is powerful, and there's opportunities to really influence the system in all kinds of ways. And being a candidate, or even, commenting on the upcoming legislative session, there's so many ways, or even supporting a candidate. Maybe you don't really want to run in this season, but you'd like to get behind somebody in your local community that is running. We're the connect point. We're the big family table here in King County that connects all of that together at the local level.
Yeah, you kind of hit on an important point. It's not just about the person who's out front with their name on, say, a campaign yard sign and the name and the voter's pamphlet that gets sent out with the mail-in ballot. A lot of times the success of any one of those examples revolves around, hey, how many people put in their time and effort to try and help support the entire campaign behind the scenes and organizing things behind the scenes so that you can get out to these foot traffic events, if it's, the farmer's market or some other community festival or something like that. Every community has usually one or two, sometimes three or more community festivals that happen throughout the year, or some of these other foot traffic events that people are going to. If it's something like, events at the Puyallup Fairgrounds, the Washington State Fair, Spring Fair, things like that. So having people behind the scenes that are willing to be part of this goes just as far as somebody who's interested in possibly being that candidate.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you go about making contacts? Are there times where you check in with businesses that you see making an impact in the community and say, hey, by the way, have you gone out and done some of that direct recruiting as well? Give me some examples.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will. And just to your point, I ran for the House of Representatives in 22 and again in 24. And I had a team of, a dozen or more people that were really in it with me. And just to really highlight your point, that is absolutely the difference maker. When good candidates are surrounded by the community, and all of those people have their own spheres of influence and their own, people that they know, and et cetera. and skills and all of that. It really is a team. Each candidate has a strong team behind them. And so just really to encourage that, and everyone on that team is as important as the candidate. So, but yes, getting out, we have a great leadership team. There's 28 of us here at the King County Republican Party. There's 11 people that kind of run the show, and then the 17 legislative district chairs for all of the districts. We're large. We're 2.3 million people here in King County, so we're unusually large as a county in our nation. And at the local level, that's really where we see a lot of that engagement. Each legislative district chair is supported in their smaller community of King County, whether it be Issaquah or Enumclaw or North Seattle, and that's really where a lot of the local government engagement works. And yes, I do my very best to get around to the whole county, and I do get to talk to a lot of people and kind of encourage them to consider being a candidate. And this is another way that I get to do it with your kind invitation to, talk to a greater group of people about it.
And, it's a numbers game in King County, especially for the Republican Party. Most people just by default don't think these things through. They end up voting for Democrats. We end up getting bad results about it. And then for the King County Republican Party, you're chairing the King County Republican Party. I'm trying to run the radio show here in the morning with Zach's help. And we're trying to point out these failings that continually come up with the Democratic majority that ultimately gets elected. So, it's not like the Republican Party's going to reverse King County to make the entire county Republican-controlled or Republican-dominant. So you're obviously going to pick certain areas that are going to be more productive, more fruitful than others. And I'm sure that you're looking at those areas. But the reason that I kind of try and connect all these dots is how often we hear from KVI listeners when it comes to September, October. I mean, it may even, I guess you could point it out to even the primary season, when the primary's in August. And leading up to a primary, but it's always more acute when we get to the general election, and people are looking through their voter's guide. People are looking at their ballot, and they're going, wow, all these election contests, the candidate is unopposed, and how frustrated people get by that. And that's why it's important to have this conversation that we're having with Jolie Lansdowne, King County Republican Party chair, about trying to convince, encourage, and recruit people to get out there and be a candidate so that somebody isn't running unopposed and just getting a free pass to get reelected, and then we get some of these same awful results.
Yes. Yeah, well said, well said. And there's even another layer when we, get out there as a candidate and run, we allow the opposing narrative to be heard. A lot of the candidates move through and just kind of say one side, the one-sided narrative. And when we run as a candidate, we have an opportunity in the Seattle Times or town halls or different community opportunities to give the common sense other side. And a lot of times people don't even get to hear that in a regular media way, So there's lots of value to running.
Yeah, one-sided narrative sums it up nicely. And if we have unopposed candidates and there's no challenge to the knucklehead things that they end up wanting to do, if it's taking it to the city council, a county council, to a state legislature, something like that. That's why it's so important to encourage people. So for KVI listeners this morning, it doesn't have to be you that takes up the mantle and decides to file and be a candidate and run, but maybe you know somebody who you think might fit that well. So you can be kind of a conduit for the King County Republican Party Chair, Jolie Lansdowne, the people that are trying to help find and identify candidates that would be worthwhile to help them get set up and figure out if they would be able to take on that sort of a candidacy in a campaign. So, it doesn't have to be the KVI listener that's hearing this right now that has to stop and run for the office. You might know somebody who would be a great candidate, and then encourage that and get them to plan accordingly. So, Jolie, we've got the upcoming state legislative session. Governor Ferguson's in all kinds of difficult spots related to how they've overcommitted spending. They've overspent in this state. Tax revenue is not coming in. Tax money's not coming in as they had initially planned and expected. So the Democrats in the majority control of the legislature in Olympia come January, they're going to have some really difficult decisions to make My suspicion is they're just going to keep doing what they've done because voters really haven't pushed back on any of this. Witnessed that in some of the special election stuff that happened back in November. So as King County Republican Party chair, what do you think is going to be most significant? What do you think is going to be most important to know about and anticipate with the coming legislative session in January?
Yeah, well, when I'm looking at priorities, I think the first thing I would say is, let's keep the people in Washington State. Let's focus on the policies that are, we've got a lot of people. We've got 48 families a day leaving Washington. So let's keep the players in the game. Let's keep the people on the field here, and really look at, why are they leaving? They're leaving because of taxes. They're leaving because of parents' rights being infringed upon. And so that would be my first, focus is let's keep the people here. Let's make that number not that, let's flip that around. And, if anything, even get people moving here. But that's a real marker of how we're sort of failing the working class, people in the middle class, the voter, the taxpayer here in Washington State. So I'd like to start with, focusing on that. We're seeing already with some of these bills, the progressives are trying to progress. We're seeing the writings on the wall there. The encroachment of socialism is real. We can look no further than our new Seattle mayor. So really looking at the kind of policies that create a better quality of life here is what we need to focus on.
Jolie Lansdowne, King County Republican Party chair, giving us a little legislative preview and what direction things are going to go with Bob Ferguson. He was kind of a two-faced this time last year where he was suggesting maybe some furloughs for state workers to try and save the state money. But then he ended up signing in record-setting increases in taxes on the state. And now the state budget is going to be short. The revenue projections, the tax collections are coming in shorter and lower than expected. So I can only anticipate that Bob Ferguson will repeat what he did last year, where he says one thing and he'll do another. So that's kind of why I was curious to get your take on what direction you think this is going to go. We'll have you back on as necessary to talk more about it when we get into the new year. Jolie, thank you for being with us here on the show. And again, if people are thinking that, yeah, you know what, it's time, I would want to try and be a candidate, what should they do? How do they contact the King County Republican Party?
Yeah, they should go to kcgop.org. That's our website. It's fun. There's a lot of good info there. And if you're thinking about being a candidate, just email me directly. That's Jolie@kcgop.org. I'd love to talk to you about it.
All right, Jolie, Jolie at kcgop.org.
That's it.
Did I remember it all? Jolie for Jolie at kcgop, KingCountyGOP.org. All right, Jolie, Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for talking to us here on The Morning Ride.
Thank you, Phil. Have a great Christmas. We'll talk to you soon.
All righty, will do. Jolie Lansdowne here on The Morning Ride.